Hi there. I want to do some videos on some older mid-90s boats. Just picked up a boat and it was overheating, so I just kind of went through the system on it. I'm certified in jet skis, two-cycle engine theory, not specifically in ski boats, just to mention that I think a lot of it crosses over. So I was just kind of going through the system, looking at I replaced the impeller and did some of the basic stuff, but I was still having some overheating issues. I've taken the boat up about 4 times and just staying close to the dock and just seeing the temperature kind of bump up, and talking to some guys that know a little bit about these boats. I've seen there's not a lot of videos on some of the overheating issues on these. I'm talking specifically like the 351 PCM motors, GT40. I'll show you the boat in a second here. It's a 96 MB Sports 200 Boss. It's got the 351 PCM, high output 5.8 with the GT40 heads. It's pretty sought after motor. People like it. It's got 310 horsepower just right out of the box. It's supposed to run about 160, I think, to 170 on the average, the lower end. Mine was. It seemed like it was getting a little bit higher than that. The gauge was reading up to 200. I found out that the gauges, the guys that know these boats really well did mention that the gauges aren't accurate. They can be like 18 to 20 degrees off. And I had my infrared gun, so I'd go to the dock. I would scan some things on it, and he was right on that point that the gauges are reading higher than the motor's actually reading. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if it's a VDO gauge. They're nice gauges. I just don't know if it's a fault thing or what's going on. So I ordered a new gauge, digital, something I can quickly look at to see. Cause these can't overheat because obviously that's just a big problem. You start melting exhaust parts and creating big problems. So anyway, that's kind of the intro to this. I'm going to do probably a few videos on this. I've seen a lot of videos on oil changes, some impellers. I mean, how many videos? Like 100 of them out there. Like, how many do we really need? I'm just not seeing videos of some of the deeper dive type of items. So transmission cooler lines. There's lots of like fake lake videos, but that stuff's pretty simple stuff. If you know boats or mechanical, we all kind of know that stuff. I mean, the oil change, you put a hose through the bottom and you get the right oil, and it's pretty simple, self-explanatory stuff. The tougher stuff that is equally as important, I'm not seeing a lot of videos on. So I did just want to do a few videos on that stuff since I'm kind of in the middle of some of that. So anyway, I'm going to flip the camera over, show you guys the boat, see what I'm dealing with, and then I'll show you the project that I have been working on. So here we go. Okay, here we go. 96 MB Sports Boss 200. So this is the boat. Got this for $9,000, 550 hours. I already did a kind of a cut and buff wax on it. And the purple was hazed out because of the age, so I brought the color back on that. I redid the bunks, the front bunks on it, just general cleaning. I stained the deck on the back, and then my son got a piece of driftwood and was beating on it, so I have to redo that. There's Jordan right there. Scared him off with the phone. Pretty clean boat. Interior is really nice shape. No real issues with the interior. You can see kind of the cockpit here. There's 558 hours on it. Right there. Pretty clean. I mean, nice boat. I prefer these older boats. The new boats, I don't even know if they're boats anymore. They're more like barges and spaceships. Some of the new boats are just crazy looking. The Access and the Moombas and stuff, they're cool, but too big for what I need. I'm old school. I love the mid-90s boats. I just think they're super cool. The Centurion, Supras, Mastercrafts, Moombas, love them. So that's why I got this, and the price was right. I think I got a good deal on it. It comes with a bimini top. It comes with the tower. It comes with the racks for the wakeboards. So it's kind of updated in that sense. This is actually a factory MB rack on it, which is kind of cool. Speakers up top, so it's got kind of some of the modern things that we didn't see in the 90s. This was wasn't even around when we were skiing. Jet skiing and wakeboarding was just kind of coming out, and I picked this up from a pawn shop. I thought it was super cool. It's the old HO. This was before even wakeboards were wakeboards. This was kind of I had a Scurfer, which was a thicker material, and then they switched over to these HOs, which were a big deal, a really, really big deal. And you know, people in the chat, if you're on the lake in the 90s, you know this board right here. There's only one wakeboard, and that was it, the HO Hyperlight. So anyway, I'm trailing off here. So what I'm working on, let's get this hatch open, is like I said, of course the owner says, oh, you know, boat's ready, no issues with it, but you know, you got to use boat, you got to figure it out yourself. I recommend that with any used boat. Have some mechanical aptitude, have some basic tools, basic knowledge. Check out videos like mine or someone else's and learn some of the basics. Even new boats are not immune to issues. Every boat can have an issue at any time. They're in the water. They function differently than cars. They're not used as often. So they sit and they can cause issues. Okay, so we got 96 351 GT40 PCM. So here you go. There's your manifold risers. There's just some basic info. Yeah, if you're new to boats, you gotta kind of know boats a little bit, I think, before. I'm pretty well versed in my 5th boat. Jet skis, like I said, certified in jet skis, and I've had 5 different kind of boats: river boats, lake boats, drag boats. So my son's 10, and I want him to experience some of the fun that I had on the water, so that's why I got this. So took it out the lake a few times, getting hotter than I wanted it to. Some people felt it was kind of normal. I just felt like something I want it to be really water ready and reliable, and you get that feeling like that you've gone through everything, and then you know the boat's ready, and you don't have to worry or stress or wait for issues to happen on the water. I like to kind of get all my maintenance up to speed and make sure everything's ready when you launch the boat, and you feel good about it when you're on the water. So here's some of the markings. This is the Pro Boss GT40 EFI. This is the rare manifold on top. Normally they're black. This dyno is more horsepower. It's the high output intake, the runners. So kind of a cool thing. Fins for cooling. I don't know if it adds a lot more power, but according to the dyno, it does. Now, I don't know what the exact horsepower is on this. It's got 550 hours. I don't think it's been rebuilt. The head bolts don't appear to be removed. Valve bolts, the cover bolts don't appear to be disrupted. So I don't think this has been rebuilt. It runs very smooth. Starts right up. This is fuel injection. Big difference between the carb and fuel injection. Fuel injection, you turn the key just like a car. It starts, runs, idles, does everything on its own. With the computer, carb doesn't. So carb, once a year, you're probably going to be going through the carb, cleaning it, winterizing it properly, needles and seats, floats. I mean, there's, that ethanol in the gas now these days can cause a lot of problems and corrosion inside a carburetor. So I'm thrilled about the EFI. It really just, this motor is quiet as a mouse, smooth, runs good. So that's kind of a general description of the boat and the motor and what I got. So more specifically, what we're talking about today is kind of some of the overheating issues. So I redid impeller. Gotta do the impeller. First things first, if you buy a used boat, just get an impeller. They're $40. Get them on Amazon, get them at your boat store. Take the, if you have a general aptitude of mechanics, this should not be a problem at all. Remove the belt, remove the pump, take pictures, put it back together in reverse order. I put a light film of grease, very light film of grease on the impeller to let it, to install it easier. And also if when you're starting for the first time, if there is any dry spots, you're not rubbing the rubber on the metal. So I think that's important. So that's how I did that. So these are the manifolds right here. Okay, so you just kind of check things off, right? When you have an overheating issue, you check things off. So you think, first thing, is it the impeller? No, replace that. And it has a good fountain coming up. So when you have your fountain coming up, they want about 6 to 8 inches of water that shoots up. Like the lake, just take the hose off, start it, and see how high that fountain goes. And you want about 6 to 8 inches. That means you got good pressure, good flow. That's been confirmed by master mechanics at the local shop. That I know the guy that built this boat actually in '96. He's still there, great guy, and he was pretty excited to see the picture. And he recognized the boat, and he built it, put it together, so he knows it. He knows this boat well. Thermostat. That's the next thing you check. Yeah, about $40, and then you got to be a marine rated one, and then you pull this off. Be really careful. These are not, I believe these are not made anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I've heard that you cannot get these, so be careful with the thermostat housing area. This just because it might be somewhat of a rare item. They're very robust, but just, you know, tread lightly with these things. So circulation pump. On a car, it would be referred to as a water pump. On the boat, it's a circulation pump. When you say water pump, it is just confuse people, because it can either be this pump or the raw water. This is the impeller. This is the raw water pump. I call it a raw water pump, and everybody knows what that means. Circulation pump is a circulation pump. You take things apart. I check the circulation pump. It's a disc. It has fins in it. It spins water. Everything's fine. There's no issues. No marring. There's nothing jammed. Nothing stuck in there. Good to go. So then I went through my hoses. I flushed all my hoses front and back. I actually bought new hoses. So on this system, this is taking raw water from the lake. That's the raw water. There's an intake under the boat. It comes, I normally have this hatch off, but it comes in off the lake. There's the hose goes up to your transmission cooler. This is a line right here. I just replaced these hoses. It was $1.50 an inch. He gave me a good deal. He gave me a buck an inch. So anyways, expensive, but you got to have this hose because you can't, this is in a suction side of the system. Okay, up until the raw water pump, you're sucking water. After the pump pushes, you're forcing the pressure water. So these cannot collapse, or you will not get water coming into your boat. These are extremely durable hoses. I mean, these are as good as it gets, like hydraulic hoses. They're made for marine. They're made for this. The boats come with these. So if you want OEM parts, this is what you're going to get, $1 an inch. I think it was $77 for these two hoses. So this comes in off the lake, comes in transmission cooler right down here. That is your transmission cooler. Okay, and then water goes through there. Transmission lines and fluid go through that, and they cool the transmission. Okay, PCM transmission. And then that hose comes off the bottom, and same hose, same diameter. You follow it right there with the blue stripe, and that goes up to your raw water pump. Those are new, those are clear, and there's no obstructions. Now right here on your transmission cooler, there was an obstruction when I first started looking at this boat. Pull the hose clamp off the top of your transmission cooler. It's hard to use my finger when I'm watching right here. Pull that off, pull this hose up the top, and there's a screen in there, and there's debris. Okay, so that can be an obstruction, and there was grasses inside here. That means that they came in an area that was a little bit boggy. They sucked in some grass, got stuck in there. I pulled that off. I took a shop vac, put it on there, sucked it out really good. No problems. All clear. Okay, I went to the lake, and still getting a little bit hotter than I liked. So okay, we'll just keep looking here. Right here, you got a hose that goes from thermostat to your risers. Okay, the raw water pump brings in the raw water, forces up into here. The thermostat is closed. Water goes to your big day manifolds, and that cools your manifolds. These will start getting cold, even when the motor's not running. Then, and also you got water that goes to your heater. I disconnected the heater for now, just so I can diagnose the motor and not have the heater being a distraction. So I just disconnected it. It's right here. There's a heater for the boat up front. You have a heater control right here that runs the heater. It's basically just like a car. Hot water goes through it, fan blows through it, and you get heat. So I just connected it that way. I don't have to deal with that part of the equation right now. I can add it when I'm done. I just want to make sure this is all about the motor right now. So I bypass the heater. The heater comes out right here, hot water, and it recirculates right back into the motor, right in the bottom of the raw water pump. Or not the raw water pump, but your Y right here. So that is not an issue. So I thought, okay, well, that's the last thing you really got to do is the dreaded, which actually come to find out is not so dreaded at all, risers. This side, the riser is removed. That's why it looks like that. This is the riser, the shiny new black thing. That's the original part. I just cleaned it up, got new bolts. So let's look at that. All right, so there's a plug in the back that drains them. If you're doing anything with the risers, the manifold, pull the plug, drain them out. Because what's going to happen is if you don't, you start messing around with stuff, you pull the riser off and the water goes into the motor. Okay, so over here you can see that's why I have the sock right there. If you get water in the manifolds, chase it with some WD-40 so it lifts it off the metal until you can get it running. Pull the plugs and then you can blow that water out with the WD-40 will protect it. It'll separate the water from the metal. Okay, so that's what we did. I pulled these are new hoses. So this is all stuff I got on Amazon. These are rated at 428 degrees, I believe. Brand new stainless clamps, so they're far superior than the ones before. Originally, you're gonna have double the clamps, 8 clamps. This will reduce it down to 4. So it's just less complex, easier to diagnose, easier to deal with when you're on the water instead of having clamps. I mean, it's insane. There's so many clamps. There's 8 of them, you know. Stainless steel also. This is all stainless steel, and there's a reducer in here. I'm going to show you these parts for the other side. This side's almost done. I just have to clamp it. So basically your bolts, you want to crack them loose. I think this is the socket right here. This is it's a 13 millimeter. Crack them, or you can even soak them before. Maybe you can get anything in there to help, because these are going to be corroded and hard to remove, and they can very easily snap and crack because they're sitting in cast iron. You got moisture. It's a recipe for problems, especially in an older boat that's 30 years old. So we crack them, get some penetrating oil in there, let it sit. Find something else to do. Let it soak in. Let it sit for a bit. Then crack them a little bit more. Soak them again. Do it a few times. So you don't want to break a bolt inside here. You're gonna have it's gonna suck. So I had no problem getting them out. Crack them. Put some fluid in there. Eventually, it just came right out. I do those with hand tools, just so you know your power. You know, if you're running ratchets, you're running a lot of power on these, and you could easily snap something. Do it by hand and just take your time on it. These are $140. They weigh 20 pounds each. This shit's heavy. It's just cast iron stuff. It's made to separate the water from the gas. The exhaust comes out, water comes in, goes around the gas. It converges right here, and I'll show you in detail the other side, which I have the parts all taken apart. That goes into your muffler right here, out the exhaust. So you get the surfaces cleaned up. Use a wood chisel. Go very slow. It's cast iron, so it's not aluminum, so you're safer. But you take your wood chisel and just go nice and slow with it on the surfaces. Just use a nice new sharp, and just kind of you get your stuff. If it's cooked or if overheated, it's going to be on there like freaking ceramic. It can be real. Just take your time. It will come off. Do light sanding around it. You can see on this side, the side's ready, already prepped. And then you get your new gasket. Graphite gasket. Don't use the other type is like this. Is a thermostat gasket, but that's the type of material that comes factory. And this is your graphite. This hole is blocked. It's designed to be like that. It's your lower hole that's blocked. The reason PCM does that and others don't, so people kind of get confused, is it blocks the lower port and pushes the water up over. Okay, so this is the port you want to block. This is how this gasket would go, just like that. graphite, just like that. Blocks that hole, pushes the water up over the riser. If that's open, then the water takes the easiest path of least resistance, doesn't cool your riser. So this is why you get the best cooling. Graphite, 20 bucks a gasket. Prep that. See, I got prepped pretty well. I also took a round file and cleaned out all my edges right here. You can dip that round file down about 4 inches and you clean up any corrosion around these holes. Don't worry about that one because it's, unless you want to remove loose rust or something, but these are the ones that are functional right here, these top 5. So we're gonna set this aside. This will be installed later. Sock back in. Don't forget to put your thing back in. If anything gets in there, if a socket drops, it's going right into your, if your intake or exhaust valve is open, everything that goes in that hole is going to go into, well, a socket wouldn't, but anything fluid or something small could easily get into your head, and then you start it and you got bigger problems than you want. What I did also is I went 1-inch lines, I went and got clear. What this is going to do, that's what it'll look like when it's done, is you can see this is not a permanent thing, but for temporary at the dock for testing, this will tell you if you have any bubbles in here, what it looks like. Because if you have bubbles, you could have a head gasket leak. That means there's something internal that's causing air pressure, which would be a head gasket. Your pump, your motor is basically a pump, an air pump. So if you have a leak in your head gasket, it's going to show right here. You're going to have bubbles, a little bit of bubbles flowing through. You don't want that. So that's why I got clear hoses here to replace all the, warm these up when you use them. Sit them in the sun or warm up in the car or the dash, because when they're rigid, they don't flex much. So anyway, it's just a little tip. New hardware, when you redo it, it's going on your Ace Hardware, local hardware store, 12 to 18 pounds torque. Okay. I usually split that in 3, do like 5 pounds, crisscross, 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 12 to 18 pounds. So I'm at 15 right in the middle. Don't over torque it, don't under torque it. This is important because you want your water coming through the gasket into your motor, down into your valves, into your combustion chamber. So take the time and torque these. This is the finished product. This is kind of my custom exhaust. These are about 15 bucks each, 13 to 15. Clamps, I don't know, like $3 each, $5 or something. And your reducer right here from 3.5 to 5 inch is 15 bucks. I mean, it looks more expensive than it is, but the factory ones were pretty cooked. They're old, and this is the replacement that I come up with. So this will get clamped. That's what's going to look like when it's done. And then on the opposite side, equally. I'm going to show you the parts. Here we go, in and out of the boat. These are the parts. I'm going to come back to the parts. I'm going to show you from start to kind of the front to the back. So I'm going to start with the riser. So this is the riser. It's all cleaned up, prepped the surfaces, painted them, wired them down with a wire wheel. You think these are new if you saw them. These are 140 bucks each plus who knows, shipping. They weigh 20 pounds, so they could be 160 bucks. I don't know if you ordered them. So clean them up, get some engine paint. This is what I use, engine paint. You can buy it anywhere, 10 bucks or something. And okay, so I had some. So there's a lip right here that comes out, and those. It's a real brittle area. It's basically in water. 30 years if you don't drain your risers. You can just be water in there. Corroding against the edge. There was some rust chunks that came out of there. Additionally, when I pulled, because you're looking for the smoking gun. If you have a overheating issue, you're looking for a smoking gun. You're looking for something that says, "Oh, that's it. I got it." Like no guesswork. This was it. This was the final piece, and this is the one that showed me that I really did find the issue. The previous owner, I don't know who. There's been 3 owners. an impeller imploded in it, and all the parts. If you have an impeller that's broken, don't just put an impeller in and go, because it's going to get caught right here. All the pieces from the impeller, and the factory boot goes over this. Okay, the water comes into here, collects, and then shoots out these little nozzles that spiral. See how they're angled? And that's what cools your exhaust. You need as much water coming out as you have coming in. So I had a lot of water going in. It was just trapped in the system and wasn't exiting. The hoses that were on this before were swollen to the point where they were actually blocking these grooves. They're plugged up. They're just plugged up. I was shocked that this wasn't even getting any cooling at all, because they were plugged full of chunks of either chunks from the cast iron or chunks from the impeller, mostly impeller, and they're not getting through those cracks. So I googled a picture of this brand new, like if I were to order a riser brand new from PCM, $150 or whatever, and it showed a much. This is after I ported it, but it looks like this, like a factory one. Now, I'm sure these are, casted on Monday through Friday. Who knows who does them, when, and how, but it's like anything. They can have differentials. So this, basically, when it had the rubber wrapped around, trying to simulate this with one hand, rubber wrapped around it, it was literally, the swelling from the rubber from the boot was blocking these vents. And I should just call them nozzles, because that's really what they are, is kind of like a nozzle. Okay, there was just barely, there was water getting through, but it took 5 minutes. It was like forever to fill up even the muffler on the boat before, like on a fake lake, if it's in the driveway. So what I did was I took the grinder, a little wheel on there, don't go crazy, but what I did was I ported those out and cleaned up those, because the water needs to exit those. There's a lot of power, a lot of heat, a lot of water coming through this motor, and it needs to get out. Take that heat with it. These are GT40 heads. It's a higher compression. They're high performance, so it needs to perform on all accounts. So I'll show you kind of what I did. You can see obviously the grinded spots. That's what I did. I just took the grinder and I grinded out those little valleys. There's rises and valleys. They're not all perfect. The casting is not perfect, but what I did was I opened up enough area where that water is going to come out, and any debris that gets in there is just going to blow right out the exhaust. I haven't lake tested this yet, but I'm going to in 2 days, and I'll see. Obviously, you don't want to grind them out to the point where it doesn't blast, because it needs a little bit of pressure, I think, to blast out, like if it's spraying out, kind of a pattern. I think that's what the factory is going for, is kind of a spray type of thing that converges with the hot exhaust, cools it, and then goes out the back of the boat. And I believe that's going to bring my temperature down. It has to in some way bring my temperature down. So anyway, if this isn't the total fix of the problem, then there's something deeper in the block that's clogged. But it appears that this is where the clog is, so I have a really good feeling about that. These are the parts. So this is a 3.5 inch that gets reduced to 3 inch at the tailpipe. Okay, so this is going to start with 3.5. This goes on here. I put light film of WD-40, lets things slide on, and it's a petroleum product, so it kind of breaks down the rubber a little bit in time and helps it kind of seal. So it'll almost act like glue in time. It'll go on easier and act like kind of glue and help seal. So this goes right here, and then I've got a reducer. This thing's super cool looking, but it all gets buried because it goes inside the tube. So 3.5 inch. Then you got your 3 inch, and that goes to your muffler. You got your clamps, so 3.5 inch clamps, and then you got your 3 inch clamps, just like that. There's 2 extra because these two go on the side that's already done. So 4 clamps per side. Really nice, updated, durable clamps with a lock nut on there. So that's what I'm doing here. That's the project. I will lake test it and see how it goes. This is my first video, so it's a little unpolished, but hopefully kind of get the point across of what I'm doing and helps people out that are in the same boat as me. I didn't even try that pun, but it worked out, I guess. So 3.5 to 3 inch out the tailpipe. So I think it'll work. I think it'll work. It looks like all these parts, like I said, they're cheap. Just Amazon, you just look it up. 3-inch. I'm trying to think exactly what it's called, but they use them for turbos and things, I guess. But they're rated for 400 plus degrees. So that's it. Start the riser. It goes down. This will get clamps. So it goes on a 3.5 inch. The reducer to 3-inch. Down to your muffler wrap. And then once it gets in there, basically your water comes through the riser, down the tube, fills up the muffler, and then the exhaust pushes it out. And there's 2 tubes. At some point, I'll have this back hatch off so I can show you guys what it looks like. It's pretty cool because it shows the whole guts of the thing. And you can also tighten your drive shaft bearing, which is down in there. That's an important process, to not have it too loose or too tight. Too tight will create heat and you'll get bigger issues. Too loose, obviously you're going to have a leak. So I did. When I got this boat, I hooked it to the lake, and it was taking on quite a bit of water. So I had to hit the bilge like every about maybe 15 minutes and dump out a few gallons. Or automatic. The bilge will pick it up automatically and shoot it out. So that's it. That's the basics for now. I'll have other detailed videos on the boat, but this is a half-an-hour video at this point, so I think I'll wrap it up. I just want to give the basics of what I'm working on. If you have any questions with your project, your 351 5.8 PCM marine engine, GT40, non-GT40, whatever you got. I just haven't seen a lot of videos on this subject, so I just wanted to put this out there for anybody having issues with that. But we'll do other things to the motor and clean up and service things over time. But for, like I said, for this video, I think it's long enough, and I don't want to lose people because it gets boring stretching the videos out too long. So I'll probably keep it right here at half an hour. So thanks for joining, guys. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, and be safe on the water.